Can a nation with a reputation as one of the best to never win the World Cup, and as always the bridesmaids, finally get rid of those tags in the 2026 World Cup? Of course, next up it is the Orange, the Netherlands. Hello everybody and welcome back to Full House Sports. Here myself, Charlie. A reminder before the video starts to please like, comment and subscribe. Anything you guys do is greatly appreciated as I try and become a one-man sports news bandwagon. Yes, next up is for me the last giant of international football to never win a World Cup. I mean, I've been interested in debate actually who is the best nation to never win the World Cup. But I think these guys who I'm wearing right now are definitely up there, the Netherlands. When you look at the story of the Netherlands at the World Cup, that 1974 team, Johan Cruyff, total football. The fact that they didn't win a World Cup is still, I think, considered a bit of an outrage, to be honest with you. Of course, losing to West Germany in that final of 1974. And even as you go on and throughout their history, yes, Cruyff was great, but in the 90s you had their current manager, Koeman, the De Boer brothers, Dennis Bergkamp's great goal against Argentina, that infamous commentary where the commentator is screaming his name. Dennis Bergkamp, that great tournament as well, where they were outstanding and knocked out, of course, by Brazil in one of the best games ever at a World Cup, it has to be said. There was issues as well, but then even when I go back and think about one of the first World Cups, I remember 2010, that tournament where they were finalists. Yes, the final wasn't great when they lost to Spain, but unfortunately, they were once again found themselves as runners-up. They were runners-up as well in 1978 to Argentina in a game in a tournament where, again, many felt that they should have won that one or had every chance to. But of course, some would argue maybe odds were stacked in favour of Argentina. That's not to be discussed on this preview. Players like the man on my back, Edgar Davids, Clarence Seedorf, as well of recent times, Wesley Sneijder, have been absolutely incredible for the Dutch national team. And I've got to say that this team as well is a team that I really like the look of. When I look at the players on paper and I look at the side, I think they're a side to be really excited about for this tournament. Now, they, of course, were disappointed in recent years. 2018, they didn't qualify. But in 2022, they reached the quarterfinals under Louis van Gaal. Of course, they were knocked out by Argentina in a game mired in controversy. And a game that I think really made Dutch fans very angry. In 2024, their hearts were broken by England, of course, at the Euros, where they were knocked out in the semi-finals despite Xavi Simons firing them 1-0 ahead in Dortmund. But this is a side, I think, that's definitely under Koeman starting to believe in itself. And when you look at it on paper, they are a very strong side. Koeman, I say, has already said actually that he won't discuss his future until after this tour, which I think is an interesting indication into maybe A, what he believes they're capable of, but B, the fact that there's also worries about how well this could go, because I do think their group is incredibly strong. On paper, like I say, they usually play in a 4-3-3. That's the Dutch way since the days of total football. And at the back, they've got some fantastic players. Mickey van der Ven actually deploys himself in a full-back role, not a centre-back role for them. But with his pace, that's not a problem. And he's an absolute freak of nature at left-back. Timber and Van Dijk will look to hold down the centre, while Denzel Dumfries, who has had his injury issues and injury woes for into this season, we know, though, for major tournaments, is so key for them as an outlet, especially attacking-wise, with how far he pushes up. The midfield, they will rely on players like Frenkie de Jong and Thierry Reinders to hold the midfield and set the tempo of games, especially in the games where they are in the heat of America. But I'm going to come on to that in a minute. The front three, yes, Memphis, now playing his football at Corinthians in Brazil. Yes, that's a controversial move, but he is still their talisman up front and was outstanding in qualifying in games where they thrashed Finland, Lithuania and Malta. They came through qualifying with 4 wins, 2 draws, and 2 draws to Poland, who pushed them hard in qualifying, but the 2 stalemates meant that they did manage to qualify automatically. Poland, of course, didn't actually get through in the end. The end, of course, on the wing, you've got Daniel Marlon, who now is at Roma, and, of course, as well, Cody Gakpo, who, of course, has been rather disappointing at Liverpool, I think, this season, but he's still a player that is relied upon for the national team. There is question marks around the number 1 position. Of course, Danny Flecken and Bart Verbruggen are 2 players that are vying for that position. It looks like Koeman prefers Verbruggen, who at times has had question marks around him. And at times has been a player, I think, that has been capable of making errors, especially for the national team, where people have said, he doesn't always come for crosses, maybe he should do. But I think he's still a fantastic player on his day and a good goalkeeper. And if not, Flecken is a more than capable backup. And talking of backups as well, Brian Brobby is a player that will probably come off the bench, who has been in outstanding form for Sunderland this year. And he's a player that I think seems to be more confident. He's a player that I think needs to be loved. And although he had that blip at Leipzig, has been in great form for the Black Cats in their first season back in the Prem. Looking at their route to the final as well, unless they don't top the group, in which case it gets harder, which is possible because, as I'm going to say, Japan and Sweden are both strong. I think that it's very interesting because in this next round they face second place in the Group B, which of course is a group of Brazil, Scotland and Morocco. That Dutch-Morocco game is huge because of course there's been a lot of movement between those two nations. Some players, Moroccan heritage, that were raised in the Dutch system have chosen to play for Morocco. That's a game and definitely a development that could be very interesting, especially as well as a big diaspora of Moroccans in the Netherlands. If not, Brazil finished second in that group, which is not out the realms of possibility. There's a lot of history between those nations at World Cups as well. And then as well after that, I think another big thing that needs to be spoken about in the Netherlands is their first two games are in air-conditioned stadiums. So where, as maybe some of the other top nations tournament will be affected by the heat early doors, they will at least have that, especially for that first game against Japan, which I think could be a thriller. All in all, I'm really excited about this Netherlands team. I think they are capable of going far. I really do. I think that they will be... I love the look of them on paper. Yes, Xavi Simons is a huge miss. Of course, he had that terrible injury towards the end of Spurs' season. But I still think they are massively capable of big things. And I'm very much excited about watching them. As always, guys, let us know what you think. Please like, comment and subscribe. Anything you guys do is greatly appreciated as I try to become a one-man sports news bandwagon. As always, have a great day.